Welcome to Extraordinary Women TV with Shannon Skinner. I'm your host. We're broadcast live today from downtown Toronto, and I've got two great guests lined up for you today. In the first half hour, you are going to meet Christine Aquin Pope, who is the president and CEO of Gunpowder Business Development and also an author. She's here to talk about her new book today. And later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top tip on living a successful life. You'll hear Christine's. In the second half of the show, we're going to be talking about how to harness your vitality, so stay tuned. My first guest, Christine Aquin Pope, is the president and CEO of Gunpowder Business Development. She has developed and sold over $45 million in products and services throughout North America and has spearheaded major initiatives across several industries, including technology, insurance, and media. She's also an author of a new book that she's here to talk about today. She's based in Toronto, and I'm very grateful to have you here on the show.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. So now you started your career as a sales trainer. You really know. If there's somebody here that knows about sales, it's certainly you. Did you ever imagine that you'd grow such an incredibly successful business?
Now, I have to say, when I was in my early 20s, I didn't have a very good concept of what my future would hold for me. And I was extraordinarily lucky to find some great mentors. You know, Greg Cleary was my sales manager at Peak Performance Training, which was an organization run by Brian Tracy. And that really gave me the roadmap for how successful people live and what do they do differently than everyone else. So it was a wonderful time in my life to have those mentors early on in my 20s.
When you're 20s and you started in sales, I mean, sales for most people is a scary proposition. And yet in your 20s, I mean, you found somewhere within you found courage to learn the tricks of the trade. Where'd you find that courage?
Well, I think when you're a relationship-orientated person like I am, you really love people. You really love meeting people. And when I was working in television and in software, I used to say to my friends, you know, people are paying me a salary to go and meet other people, which I thought was brilliant, you know. So for me, it's not about selling, it's really about helping. And I think that's a theme throughout my life, and that's what I encourage you know, people that I train in my workshops to really focus on the benefits that they're able to bring to a senior decision maker and not to focus on themselves. I mean, this is basic stuff, but it's surprising how many people still need to hear that lesson. So
sales then, you know, is sales a learned skill, or is it really about developing relationship skills then?
Well, I think that, you know, certainly in my business the last 10 years, we have trained many different people straight out of university without a lot of sales background at all. In fact, some of my top performers have come from backgrounds like retail, and a couple of them haven't had a university education. But I believe that if you have a good sales process in place, that you can wrap a system of success around people and help them evolve to become extraordinary salespeople. Now, if you're working with someone who's terribly introverted and it's painful for them to speak with people, then, I mean, that's going to have its challenges. But if you take an average person that is, you know, outgoing and enjoys being with people and is active and talkative and enjoys socializing, and you put them into a system, I think definitely sales techniques and sales training can take people a great distance in this business.
So let's just talk a little bit about your business, Gunpowder Business. I've got to know, where did you get the name? How did you come up with this?
Okay, so when I started my business, I was looking at business development. And I was thinking about tarantula business development. I wanted something memorable because I had worked for a software company called DWL. And when you're calling on Fortune 1000 companies, you want to be memorable. Your name wants to stand out.
Tarantula would do it.
I remember there was a software competitor named Tarantula, and I still remember that competitor. So one day, my lawyer is on the phone. I'm in the car. And he says, Christine, you're flying to Atlanta tomorrow. I need these contracts done today. I need the name of your business. And I was looking down at my Gunpowder green tea, and I said, John, what do you think of the name Gunpowder Business Development? And he says, Christine, I hate it. Well, at that time, I was in an MBA program with 39 other entrepreneurs, and I was doing half-day classes, so I was heading downtown, and I walked into the classroom and I said, guys, what do you think about Gunpowder Business? And it was like all thumbs up. Yeah, that's a fantastic name. And it really resonates with my personality, especially when I was younger, because it's all about acceleration, accelerating the sales pipeline. And I'm one of these individuals that's very action oriented, and I like to find faster ways to do things. So throughout my career, I've always been trying to find better ways to build trust, to resolve conflicts or issues or obstacles, uncover obstacles, anything that's standing in my way of signing that multi-million-dollar contract. So that's how Gunpowder Business came to be.
You know, and I love the sort of the military, references, and you use it in your marketing too. So, it's a great name to go and tackle something that so many people are afraid to do.
Well, I think, the military thing, we wrapped it into the book in a big way, because we quote George Patton, who's a famous general in the world, because I think in life, the more successful you are, the more disciplined you are. And there's nobody more disciplined than people in the Army. And they, take ordinary people and they wrap a process around them and they make them extraordinary soldiers. And that's my philosophy when it comes to training salespeople.
So discipline is really critical then.
Yes.
So the more successful you are, the more disciplined you are. Therefore, the more disciplined you are, you should be more successful then.
Well, if you think about, what successful people do, when I was working with Brian Tracy, he interviewed thousands of millionaires. And they would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. They would do their, workout in the morning. They would do their reading in the morning. They would make their affirmations. They would, pump themselves up for their day. And they were in the office by 7. That's discipline. And there's no mistake about why they became successful. They were working hard and doing things that not everybody is willing to do for their life.
Get up at 5 in the morning and work out and be in the office by 7. It's almost my day. Now, your services with Gunpowder, let's just talk a little bit about what your services are.
Well, our day-to-day service that we do for a select group of clients of ours is we provide a lead generation appointment setting service. And what that means is that we are experts at setting appointments with senior decision makers within Fortune 1000 companies. So people that hire us for lead generation are people that are usually selling a big ticket item. We have a software background, so all my people are well versed in technology, and we do a lot of software work where, a small entrepreneur might have a fantastic software, but he doesn't know how to sell, and he doesn't know how to get in front of the Fortune 1000 decision makers who would actually buy their software. So an example of a client that we worked with for over 2 years was Software Innovations. Software Innovation has tremendous software that helps companies streamline their procurement and workflow for their employees. IntelliResponse was a company that came to us 3 years ago. They had 2 Canadian universities using their application. And they knew that we knew technology, and they just wanted to hit the street running. And in 2 years, they went from 0 marketplace in the U.S. to being 3rd in the marketplace. And that's by going on 10 to 12 new business meetings every month. So that was our job. We would set those meetings up initially it was for the owner. Every small entrepreneur tends to be the one who sells initially. And then if they can replicate that and hire their first sales manager, and that was Sean. And then Ted told me something. He says, I know Sean's great because in the first month he's with me, you sent him out on 9 meetings, and we got, 5 proposals. So I know he's worth his money. So the small business owner can actually start to replicate himself once he has a good system in place. And that's where I think a lot of small businesses struggle, is they don't get past that one or two flagship clients. And there's a good friend of mine, Bill Malosh, who says, most companies are one significant client away from more financial stability. One large client away from financial stability. Because most small businesses have at least one. But if they had two or three, they would be more financially stable. So that's what we try to coach our clients in garnering bigger revenues from Fortune 1000.
Now, we're about to take a break, and before we do, I've got my good to know minute, and I know, Christine, you've got a great tip.
Well, the secret to my success, because, I was not born with great self-esteem, and it's something that you can turn around. And so what I do is I take goal setting and I put it on steroids, and I suggest to you that you create I am statements. Now, what an I am statement is are things like, in the present moment, I am a great golfer. I'm an extraordinary mother. I am great at dealing with conflict and resolving problems with my team. I am a fantastic motivator. Whatever it is that you want to accomplish in your life, I suggest that you write them down in the present moment and review them in the morning, any spare moment that you have, and particularly before you go to bed.
Thank you so much. I am statements. Well, I am going to be taking a break right now, and when I come back, more with Christine Aquin Pope. Welcome back to Extraordinary Women TV with Shannon Skinner, and I'm here speaking with Christine Aquin Pope, CEO and President of Gunpowder Business Development. Now, before the break, we were talking about sales and business and processes, the military, the success of the military. One thing I wanted to ask you was, what has been your greatest challenge as a business owner?
Well, I think my biggest challenge in my life was when I divorced my first husband and became a single mother. And I was on my own for 10 years. And I actually started my business because of being a single mother. And so, it's interesting when I reflect back, my biggest challenge was being a single mother, but it was my greatest motivator in business. It's the thing that motivated me to want to be home. We started in my house, in North Toronto, and the business started to grow, and who would have thought that it would have grown to 12 people and 3 support staff. But initially, we were in our house, and so Natasha, my daughter, would come home from school, and she wouldn't be at a babysitter, she would be with the team, of pretty protective sales professionals. And she would see us go through our staff meetings, and she went through a lot. Not every 9-year-old experiences that kind of exposure. But she's turned into an extraordinary young girl who's at her 2nd year at Concordia. And what's interesting is that I think she's, taken some of the tools of the trade and applied it to her own life, because her program at Concordia was like 100 people. That's all they accepted. And so she's learned to blast down some big doors for herself and getting summer jobs and so on. So that was definitely one of the hardest things, was raising my daughter on my own for all those years.
And you did it.
I did.
And today you have a book out too. Not only do you have a successful business, but you have a book, Blast Open Big Doors, How to Prospect Fortune 1000 Companies. There we go. It's a great cover.
And probably the name was the hardest thing to come up with.
I think it always is.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm a big I am statement person, right? And I met this fellow who taught me I am statements, and one of his was I am an author. So I adopted that myself, and so about 3.5 years ago, I'm reading my I am statements, and I am an author. So I thought, well, what am I going to write about? I've never written, and in fact, probably being isolated and alone is not my personality. So I thought I'd start with something I knew really well, which was my sales process, and sharing that with a lot of small business people because a lot of companies can't afford to hire a company like ours. And so that's what prompted this book. And the editor that I hired to help me write it was so enthusiastic about the material that he encouraged me to actually publish it. So it's one of those, things that I never thought anybody else would read, but it is absolutely all of our trade secrets about how we set up a salesperson for success, on how to prospect these large Fortune 1000 companies, which is applicable to any size company. I mean, Fortune 1000 is the toughest thing out there. And, this will bulletproof you if you're just calling local businesses in your neighborhood.
So really anyone in business could benefit by reading this book.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so anyone from an executive, a CEO, to somebody in the C-suite, to entrepreneur, to a singer-songwriter who's, selling their own music.
Oh, especially the creative people out there.
Especially the creative people, yeah.
Especially the creative people. But one of the things I saw in my career is that some very talented people who were fantastic in front of a CIO, for example. I tell a story of when I was working in software at DWL. They had hired what I call the magic bullet. People, especially small businesses, will look for someone who's been successful in sales and bring them on board, but they don't set up a system for them in advance to tell them, what are the benefits statements, what are the competitive landscapes out there, why would a C-level person engage and resonate with your product and service. They don't prepare even the magic bullets to be successful. And so I was working at this software company, and they had hired myself and another colleague from the US. And he was 10 times more articulate in front of a CIO than I had ever been. But he couldn't get a meeting. In the first year, I took our company to 50 Fortune 500 companies, and he only was able to get us into 2. So sadly, he didn't have a job a year later. And I didn't have a great colleague who was fantastic and knew the back end of the CIO like nobody did. And it wasn't that he was a bad salesperson. It wasn't any of, I believe, his fault. It was because it was a new entrepreneurial environment. They didn't have a system like Xerox does or what London Life does. They just kind of let you go on your own. You have to figure it out. And the same thing happened to me when I was at City TV. When we were at City TV, you were handed your $1 million quota and these 8x10 floppy sheets, glossy photos of our shows. I had a picture of Seinfeld. I had to sell a 30-second spot of Seinfeld for $25,000.
$25,000?
And that's all I had as a sales tool.
Yeah.
Was this glossy one sheet. It was crazy. But that's where I learned to wrap a process around myself. But fortunately, I had had great training with Brian Tracy's organization. And then again, when I worked with London Life, insurance grew up in a very competitive environment. Television, it was cowboy days, right? People who used to sell yellow pages or general managers of television stations. There was a monopoly or triopoly in Canada until the CRTC released and allowed more competition. Now we've got a lot of competition. Now they have to have a sales process in place. In fact, that's why City TV hired me. When I interviewed with them, they asked the final candidates to present a sales presentation to them. So instead of, I was at London Life at the time, and I thought, oh my God, insurance, that'll just bore them to tears, right? So what I did was I designed a whole television sales process, and it was 34 pages, and I bounded it hardcover, and it was everything from introductory letter, introductory script, to what you do in a first meeting, to how do you persuade them to move to television, and the arguments around that. And that's how I got the job.
Now, I have to ask you, what does passion have to do with selling? I mean, if you are passionate and truly believe in your product and your service, can you be a better salesperson, or not necessarily so?
Well, I forget who said it, but sales is an exchange of enthusiasm. And whether that's true or not, but I believe that passion and a high degree of trust are definitely key components within any fruitful interaction.
So what would you say is the biggest mistake that you see business owners making?
Business owners?
From your
I think
perspective.
One of the biggest challenges that business owners face is expanding beyond themselves. For example, when I was at City TV, I was a sales rep. My mentor encouraged me to hire my first executive assistant when I was a sales rep. I was making a very modest base salary, and I was giving my sales assistant $15 of that modest base salary, and I was a single mother. So it took a leap of faith to invest. But what did that executive assistant do for me? She helped me double my sales. I earned 10% on new business at the time. Thank the Waters family for that. You know, nobody in television paid 10%. But with that assistant, I was able to do more, meet more prospects. I taught her how to do my cold calling. And in fact, by hiring that first assistant and teaching her my sales process was really the foundation of my current business at Gunpowder Business. But I would say the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs make is not leveraging their time properly and investing in assets to help support them be productive and focused on the thing that they do best.
Now, Christine, where can people get a copy of your book? Can we just take a look at the cover again?
My book is available at Amazon, amazon.com, so it's available at Kindle as well, and Books for Business here in Toronto. And in the next few months, it'll be probably available at Indigo as well.
Well, congratulations on your book, and I wish you all the best of success with it. And I would love to have you on the show again some other time, and we'll do a follow-up, and probably by then you'll have your 5th book out.
Thank you, Shannon.
At the rate you're going, cranking out your material. So.
And thanks for supporting women like this. It's a fantastic show.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, my guest Alicia Snell is here to talk about how you can have more vitality, and if there's anybody who has is an expert at it, it certainly is her. So stay tuned.